Oh boy, the Honkai Star Rail launcher is now available for download and there's only several more hours, at most a day, before we get to jump into the game. Now, in the last week or so leading up to the official launch, there's been a lot of content creators sharing information on what to do, who to summon, and general tips for the game. This video is kinda gonna be something like that, but it's mostly just me sharing what I'll personally be doing in the days after launch, along with my personal reasonings. It's really just a way for me to ramble and offload some hype for the game and calm myself down, but hopefully some of these commentary might help you in some way. Before we jump into that, if you plan on playing this game for the long term, do consider subscribing to the channel as I'll be covering this game alongside Genshin Impact. I mostly do lore content, but there will be other stuff as well in the future. Just to be completely transparent here, I never played any of the closed or open betas for this game, so most of my decisions will be based on past experience in other games like Genshin and whatever I happen to have watched or researched myself. Let's first start off with rerolling accounts. For those of you who are not aware, rerolling is pretty much a staple of any gacha game. The idea is that for every new account, you're going to be given a specific set of summons in the beginning that is meant to kickstart your new adventure. So what most people tend to do is they will make a few guest accounts and summon on them using these startup summons. If they happen to pull a 5-star or a really good meta character, then they'll just keep the account and continue with it, and if they don't, they'll just keep re-rolling. The idea behind this is that you want to give yourself a really good head start with stronger characters, which will let you clear more content, giving you more rewards, and in doing so, letting you summon even more. While I used to reroll quite a bit in the past, personally, I won't be rerolling myself this time. Based on the information that I've been able to find, it seems that the rerolling process is far more tedious for Honkai Star Rail, which I'll just refer to HSR from now. Firstly, it's because Hoyoverse has removed the guest account login, meaning that you need to have a bunch of throwaway accounts prepared to even attempt rerolling. Aside from that, HSR seems to have a rather involved tutorial period at the start with plenty of unskippable cutscenes and stuff to do. By the time you reach or unlock the summoning function, quite a significant amount of time will have been taken up. You also don't get that many passes, which are the summoning currency, at the beginning, with only about 20 to 40 depending on how far you plan to progress in the game. The rates, by the way, are painfully low, with only a 0.6% chance you will get a 5-star before the soft PT of 70 summons. So long story short, getting a 5-star, let alone the one you want, will likely be fairly difficult and time consuming. In most gacha games, the highest ranking characters tend to be far more powerful than those of the next lower tier. So getting a 5-star in your typical gacha game is really a big advantage and why people reroll. However, based on Genshin Impact and information shared by others during the closed beta, the 4-star characters and even some of the free ones are actually pretty good. I've checked out a bit of their skills and abilities, and I'm probably comfortable with just using the free characters at least for the first few weeks. Lastly, it seems that if you plan to use the same account that you play Genshin Impact on, then rerolling is already out of the question unless you plan to use 2 separate accounts. When the game launches, similar to Genshin, there will be essentially 3 banners that will be up. A sort of beginner one, a standard one, and the limited character banner. The first 2 banners will likely use the standard passes, while the character banner will use special passes. Each of these passes can be obtained through playing the game and events, and can be bought using the premium currency Stellar Jades, which are basically Primogems. If you're free to play, what most people will tell you is that you should only ever use Stellar Jades to buy special passes, and thus summon on the limited character banner. For the standard banners, the rule of thumb is to only summon on them if you get the passes for free through quests, events, or other in-game methods. So if that's the case, is the first character banner going to be worth it? At launch, the first character banner will have Sela, or Seely, or Seal? I'm gonna call it Sela. Now, there's a whole load of resources and videos discussing these characters in detail, so I won't dive too deeply into them, but personally, I would probably be skipping on the first banner. Sela is, as far as I understand, a super strong scythe-wielding single-target DPS. The problem is that the 4 stars on her banner don't seem to be all that great. So for me, I'm probably going to be skipping on her banner in favor of the next one, which is speculated to be Jingyuan. His banner happens to have 3 really good 4 stars, so even if I don't luck out on the 5-star banner character itself, those 4 stars will be a great start to my account. Now, this is just my own planning. If you feel that Scylla is a must-have, and I totally get it, I'm a sucker for scythe-wielding badasses, then don't let me change your mind. Summon for who you will have the most fun with, or whichever character you like the most. For those beginner and standard banners, you will be getting a 5-star randomly when you hit 50 summons and 300 summons respectively. Personally, I'm kinda hoping to either get Bronya or Bailu, and the reason is because these are two of the best support and healers the game currently has. Again, basing my assumptions on Genshin and other games, support characters tend to have a better longevity compared to DPS ones, so for a free-to-play, they would probably be more useful for a longer period of time. Let's move on to a rather important part, at least for me. One of the questions that you might have is if you need to know anything about Honkai Impact in order for you to play Honkai Star Rail. Now, I've never played Honkai Impact, and I was a bit worried that not knowing anything about it might cause me to enjoy the game less. As fun as the combat looks, I'm mostly invested in these games for the story. But you'll be happy to know that most responses that I found say that you don't really need to know much about Honkai Impact's lore. Honkai Star Rail seems to exist in a similar multiverse with Honkai Impact, so it shares a lot of the same character names and appearances. But these characters are largely different with their own stories. The overarching ideas or themes, such as the Honkai itself, may potentially reappear, but from what I can tell, it's not a requirement to know about them before jumping in. Those areas where this does happen, most players from the beta mention that they are explained quite well in HSR itself. The only exception seems to be with one particular character, Welt. In HSR, Welt is not an alternate version of the very same character from Honkai Impact. There is a whole story that explains why he is here in HSR, and you can read about it in a manga, but even then, it seems you don't really need to in order to grasp the overall story in HSR. But if you are curious, there are quite a few channels who have made videos talking about stuff they feel you should know, so you can check those out. For me personally, I'll probably jump into the game without knowing too much about Honkai Impact and hope that I can piece whatever isn't clear as I go along. That's basically some of the more important things I wanted to share before the game goes live. Some of this can be rather subjective, so don't think of them as hard and fast rules you need to follow, but just general guidance. Play the game however you wish, and the point is always to have fun. As I mentioned, I mostly just wanted to talk about this game as I'm quite hyped for it, and this will just mostly be my ramblings. That does it for this video, and if you enjoyed it, or even found something informative here, do consider liking and subbing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. As usual, have a nice day.